What will happen to the World Bank and IMF if the dollar loses its status as the world's reserve currency? Imagine this. For decades, these institutions have reigned supreme, backed by the power of the almighty dollar, a currency every nation has needed to sustain its economy. The US has enjoyed an unparalleled advantage, printing dollars at will, fueling these global financial giants, and wielding influence over the very fabric of nations borrowing from the IMF and World Bank. But now things are changing. BRICS has moved closer than ever to launching a new currency and an alternative payment system like SWIFT. If the dollar's dominance fades, what happens to the World Bank and IMF, institutions deeply entwined with the American financial system? Will they adapt, diminish, or collapse entirely under the weight of a new monetary order? In this video, let's find out. The World Bank, since its establishment in 1944, has been deeply controlled by the United States. Every president of the institution, from Eugene Meyer to the current head, Ajay Banga, has been an American citizen. Not only that, but the United States has always chosen the World Bank president, mainly because it's the major shareholder of the bank. This unbroken tradition hints toward a monopoly that ties the bank's leadership and decision-making closely to U.S. economic and geopolitical priorities. Interestingly, while the World Bank claims to serve the global community, particularly nations in the Global South, its leadership structure and policy approaches reveal a persistent bias toward Western interests. The United States, as the largest stakeholder, enjoys disproportionate influence, influencing decisions on development funding and structural adjustments in ways that align with its own agendas. This lack of diversity in leadership fuels criticism that the World Bank is more of a Western instrument than a truly international body. For nations in the Global South, which comprise the majority of the bank's loan borrowers, this raises concerns about fair representation and accountability. Many view the institution's neoliberal policies, focused on privatization, trade liberalization, and austerity measures, as strategies that prioritize multinational corporate profits over sustainable development. Such policies have often deepened inequality, weakened local governance, and created cycles of dependency, further alienating those the bank claims to help. But the World Bank is not alone. The IMF also shows this bias. Since its establishment, its managing directors have always been Europeans, reinforcing the Western grip on global financial governance. From Camille Gut to Kristalina Georgieva, this tradition perpetuates a Eurocentric perspective, marginalizing the voices of developing nations. Together, the US-led World Bank and the Europe-led IMF have built a governance framework that centralizes decision-making power in the hands of the Western Bloc. This structure excludes key players from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, perpetuating a governance model rooted in the colonial era. In response, emerging economies, particularly the BRICS nations, have pushed for significant reforms. They argue that the current structures of the World Bank and IMF no longer reflect the economic realities of a multipolar world. Dissatisfaction with these institutions has spurred initiatives like the New Development Bank, established by BRICS in 2015. Offering loans with fewer conditions and a focus on sustainable development, the NDB provides an alternative to Western-dominated financial institutions. While still in its early stages, the NDB represents a growing challenge to the traditional dominance of the World Bank and IMF. Here, the developing countries have two choices. First, they can keep themselves aligned with financial institutions that were established to benefit the wealthy nations and exploit the developing nations. Second, they can choose a new financial order, led by BRICS, which will bring limitless opportunities, besides creating a system which will be beneficial for these countries. Interestingly, countries are now choosing the second option. That's because the Global South has experienced profound economic and social consequences due to the policies tied to IMF loans. Even before that, these countries faced colonialism, seeing their natural resources being looted and sent to Western countries. And after colonialism ended, Western countries created institutions like the IMF and the World Bank that exploited the Global South. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. Shocking examples exist that show how the IMF and the World Bank work, sending a clear warning for the world to distance themselves away from the West-led system. In Nigeria during the 1980s, a severe economic downturn forced the government to adopt a structural adjustment program developed with the IMF. While intended to diversify the economy and stabilize finances, the program resulted in significant hardship. The devaluation of the naira led to rampant inflation, and the removal of subsidies caused sharp increases in living costs, especially for the poor. Public frustration reached a breaking point in 1989 with the anti-structural adjustment program riots, during which thousands protested against economic conditions, only to be met with violent suppression. This period showed the destabilizing effects of externally imposed policies on Nigeria's social fabric, contributing to widespread poverty and a distrust of leadership. In Egypt, the 1977 bread riots revealed the immediate risks of IMF-mandated austerity measures. The removal of subsidies on essential food items led to abrupt price hikes, sparking widespread protests across major cities. The government's harsh response resulted in dozens of deaths and injuries, forcing it to reinstate subsidies under public pressure. Similarly, Brazil's late 1990s economic crisis led to an IMF bailout conditioned on severe austerity measures. While these reforms helped stabilize the economy and control inflation, they disproportionately impacted low-income populations by cutting funding for healthcare, education, and social security. Public backlash against these measures was intense, with nationwide protests and strikes. Countries like Morocco, Venezuela, and Pakistan show the same trend. It became clear that the IMF and the World Bank did not care about the public or well-being of the countries, but the corporate interest of its donor countries. Structural adjustments often ignored local contexts, leading to economic dislocation and social unrest. In response, countries like those in BRICS have advocated for alternative financial models, emphasizing borrower-friendly terms and development-focused strategies. BRICS has taken proactive steps to create alternative financial mechanisms that reduce reliance on traditional Western-dominated institutions like the IMF. Besides the new development bank, which offers affordable loans, instead of exploiting the countries when they need finance, the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, or CRA, serves as a financial safety net for BRICS members, offering liquidity support to address balance of payments crises. More tangible steps have been taken recently to create a financial system independent of the West-led SWIFT and launch a new currency. During the 2024 BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia, member nations advised initiatives to reduce dependence on Western financial systems. Proposals such as the creation of a BRICS grain exchange aim to stabilize food prices and enhance food security by facilitating direct trade among member countries, bypassing global exchanges dominated by Western interests. Another significant move is the development of a common cross-border payment system, BRICS Pay, designed to enable transactions in local currencies. By promoting settlements in national currencies, BRICS seeks to diminish the global dominance of the US dollar and establish a more balanced international monetary order. However, critics argue that it will be hard for BRICS to offer an alternative to the dollar and SWIFT. Perhaps it's forgotten that China is a major BRICS member and there is nothing of an economic nature which China cannot take care of. China has over 150 countries in its Belt and Road Initiative and 134 countries in the Global South Alliance called G77 plus China. That's the power China holds and can use to launch any currency it wants. Countries already know the exploitative nature of the World Bank and the IMF, and that the Western countries, especially the US, control them. Therefore, the appeal toward BRICS offered financial initiatives like the new currency and a new payment system is growing. Countries want a financial system where they themselves are the beneficiaries, not the wealthy countries. And because exploitation, control, and neo-colonial elements are in the very fabric of the World Bank and the IMF, putting bets on their reform is useless. Countries get the option to either cling to the decaying global order debris or realign with the BRICS and become part of the new financial order which is inevitable. This can never happen that China becomes the world's largest economy, which world's most extensive trade route and still follows a currency that was given decades by a declining superpower. With time, Not only will we see the dollar losing its value, but also the US feeling the pain, but also all institutions linked with the US, and the dollar becoming irrelevant. It's hard that the World Bank and the IMF are reformed ever, in such a way that they begin to benefit the developing nations. This was never the founding goal. Rather, the goal was to ensure the United States holds supremacy in global finance, and the dollar remains the reserve currency. What do you think? Will the IMF and the World Bank remain despite the dollar not being the reserve currency? Or would these institutions, which work for Western interests, collapse ultimately? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on whether BRICS will create institutions like the IMF that will ensure their dominance in the world. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.